I would like to begin by thanking Nidak Bobo Group for creating this scholarship opportunity. Also, a big thank you to the marketing team who offered tremendous support in getting this presentation together. I could not have done this without your help. In Celtic spirituality, there is a concept of thin place, a place where the boundary between heaven and earth is notably thin. It's a place where we can sense the divine more readily. These places are most often associated with wild landscapes. A thin place requires us to step from one world into another, and that often means traveling to a place where we have less control and where the unpredictable becomes the means of discovery. The Camino de Santiago creates an ideal context for experiencing life within a thin place. There's no wonder that over the 1,000-year history of pilgrimage, many sanctuaries and churches have been built along the way. These sacred spaces of rest and worship embody physical manifestations of thin places. A walking immersion or pilgrimage over weeks or even months has the potential to create space for incredible transformation. What exactly is a pilgrimage? Pilgrimage is a journey of moral or spiritual significance, typically to a location of importance to one's beliefs and faith, although it can be a metaphorical journey into someone's own interior landscape. Modern pilgrims walk the Camino. Some ride a bike for many reasons: spiritual, religious, health, adventure. There are 1,000 unique reasons for embarking on the walk, but one thing unifies them: the journey. A pilgrimage becomes an intricate tapestry of people, landscape, sacred moments, food, laughter, and healing. The 750-kilometer Camino Francais, which begins in southern France, has been the most prominent route pilgrims walk to the legendary burial site of St. James or Santiago de Compostela. In the Middle Ages, pilgrims set off from their home, carrying a few belongings, and began their journey. Hence the creation of a network of footpaths throughout Spain and much of Europe. Travel provides an avenue of self-discovery as we leave our familiar surroundings and venture into the unknown. By understanding where we have come from, we have a better idea of where we are going and perhaps where we should be heading. This is why I chose to walk a portion of the Camino. Modern-day pilgrims begin their walk from many different points along the way. We took 3 flights to get to Madrid and then a 4-hour train ride to Astorga, our starting point. Our gracious hosts, Rose and Fernando, welcomed us with a beautiful lunch, and then we took a walking tour of the town. This was a perfect welcome to Spain. They opened their homes and their hearts to us and spoke excitedly to us about our adventure. Astorga is a small town surrounded by a Roman wall. There, sitting on the wall, enjoying his Sunday afternoon, I met this man. His face was radiant, his kind eyes conveyed the wisdom of his years. We didn't have a conversation, simply a smile and a nod of our heads connected us in that moment, bridging gaps of time, space, and language. This was the first of many of these types of experiences I had throughout my travels. The most significant architectural feature in Astorga is the Bishop's Palace, designed by Antoni Gaudí. The palace is built in a neo-medieval style. Its granite exterior embodies features of Gaudí later works, such as the arches of the entrance with buttresses and chimneys integrated in the side facades. It has been said that the 3 giant flaring stone arches of the portico were not finally able to be raised until Gaudí himself came and helped the workers with his own hands. Their 2 previous attempts without his presence were failures. Gaudí dedicated his life to divine artistic inspiration, and his intention to infuse his work with the divine creates the elements of a thin place. For him, there was almost nothing that separated man from God, and he sought to bridge this gap through his work. When people pointed out that the Sagrada Familia would never be finished in his lifetime, Gaudí would shrug and say, "My client is not in a hurry." Although the palace is not a church, it is a contemplative space. One can feel the history in the walls of Bishop's Palace and can witness the passion Gaudí poured into the design. The relationship Gaudí had with Bishop Grau, the man who asked him to design the palace, inspired Gaudí to renounce his wealth and pursue a devout life of mysticism and simplicity. This personal dedication to his spirituality became an extension of himself through his creations. I began my walk from Astorga because I intentionally wanted to visit Cruz Ferro early in my journey. Cruz Ferro, or the Iron Cross, is symbolically important as the highest point on the Camino Francés. Not much is known about its origins, but since the 11th century, the cross has been a key feature here. Pilgrims traditionally carried a large stone from early on in their journey. This tradition was based in religious mysticism, the stone symbolizing a transgression they hoped to expunge through pilgrimage. Modern pilgrims embody a new interpretation, carrying a rock or other memento of something they hope to leave behind in their lives. In this thin place, the respectful procession of pilgrims was continuous. Each pilgrim would approach the cross, take a minute of silence, and leave his stone or other item. There were photos, cigarette packs, crystals, poems, pill bottles, written notes. Perhaps by laying down their burdens, they hoped to become empty and open to receiving the lessons of their journey. Along the path, there were personal shrines honoring the memories of someone who had died. These were impromptu thin places within the context of the larger thin place. Over the weeks, months, and years, other pilgrims would leave something behind at these places. The beauty of the Camino embraced these offerings and created a place for them to be honored. For me, the hours of walking became a moving meditation. Sometimes people would pass in a group, or one by one. Hours spent with only the sound of feet on the path and the click-clack of walking poles. I would settle into a pace, usually choosing to walk alone and take in the environment. One of the main reasons I chose this as my destination was so that I could gain some clarity and inner stillness, yet at the same time experience immersion in a foreign cultural context. In one day of walking 15 miles, an entire discourse could occur within oneself. This introspection created space for solutions, where before there may have only been a wall or a problem. Suddenly I would see a door or a way through that I may not have seen before. In the ancient days of pilgrimage, there were no hotels, only churches, monasteries, or people who opened their homes to weary pilgrims and gave them refuge. The village of Maharin, not even a village, just a cluster of buildings, is a universal crossroads with colorful flags, religious icons, and worldwide mile markers. There we met Tomas, a Knights Templar, who lives to serve the pilgrims. He greeted everyone with a smile and had time to chat with each visitor. He has dedicated his life to creating a welcoming place for pilgrims to rest and gather. He embodied the spirit of the Camino with his kindness. And there I also met Jed from Mobile, Alabama. He had injured his foot and met a Spaniard who was going to give him a lift to the next town. Traveling across the ocean to meet a proud Roll Tide fan in the Leonese Mountains was truly a moment of serendipity. The buildings along the Camino told a story, sometimes a story of decay, at other times a story of rebirth, and sometimes an in-between story. Buildings asked me to observe them, their doors, their steps, their carefully placed stones. The towns grew up along the Camino as a response to the needs of pilgrims, and pilgrimage is a backbone of the Spanish economy today. Many villages along the way were ghost towns for the past 100 years, but have come back to life in recent years with the emergence of modern pilgrims in search of peace in our chaotic, material-centric world. The Camino also meandered through large towns, such as the industrial town of Ponferrada. The highlight being the Knights Templar Castle, perched on a hill overlooking the new section of the city. Churches are a constant reminder that there is a unifying energy across centuries that inspire many people to walk this path. Even if a town only had 20 residents, the church was open and well-maintained. I found myself thinking about the purpose of these churches. Were they simply a safe haven for people to escape the elements? Or did the spaces in and of themselves elevate the travelers in order to make conscious contact with something greater than themselves? Sacred spaces offer a refuge from the challenges of daily life. A weary pilgrim can lay down their burdens and rest. I was moved by these spaces and the lives of the people who had made the journey for centuries. Their lives infused everything with their presence. The spirit of community thrives along the way, something you don't usually encounter in day-to-day life. The Spanish people embraced the pilgrims and the heritage of the Camino. Greetings of Buen Camino, or good way, are heard throughout the day. It's a phrase that epitomizes the collective experience. The shared journey unites everyone. It's a space where there is no competition, no color, no politics, although there may be talk of politics over a beer at night. A simple act inspires kindness and generosity, and each person becomes a part of the ripple effect. Along the way, people are constantly helping one another. On my first day walking, I ran out of water, jet-lagged, and had walked 18 miles. A man from Denmark approached me and began to pass. He asked if I was okay, and seeing that I was not, pulled out a Coke and apologized that it was not cold. It would have been a cool Coke commercial, I thought with a smile. He didn't know me, but we were connected. Before I left for Spain, I spent hours planning, researching, and studying. The minute I arrived in Spain, all plans flew out the window. I had carefully mapped out the walking distances and places to stay, but once I arrived and began to walk, I was so caught up in each moment, in the environment, in the exchanges of broken Spanish with the locals, that the goal fell away. In this simplicity, I awakened to the realization that I was living in a thin place, and that is where transformation occurs. The stripping away of the known context allows the essence to emerge. On the Camino, and in a thin place, how you previously defined yourself may begin to fall away. The walk reminded me what truly matters to me in life, that I want to inspire other people to be authentic and to encourage them to listen to and follow their inner compass. Arriving in Old Town Santiago de Compostela was exciting. There were pilgrims everywhere, and it wasn't peak season yet. The cathedral is remarkable, not only as an example of architecture, but in its symbolism as the destination of pilgrimage for millions of people over the last 1,000 years. Many travelers connecting their passions, their aspirations, their soul journey at this one destination to one another over a huge expanse of history. This is a notable thin place. Any time of day, there are pilgrims sitting in the pews, offering thanks or prayers to their version of the divine. Some have walked 800 kilometers to arrive here, and all have experienced incredible journeys. The cathedral offers a resting place for the weary and jubilant pilgrims, regardless of their spiritual background. Masses are packed with several thousand people sitting and standing in the aisles for the service. The day we attended Mass, there were priests from 7 countries, each speaking in turn in their own language. This Mass happens every day, several times a day, 365 days a year. The number of people who spend time in this thin place is remarkable and moving. The Camino unites nationality, religion, career choice. All fall away in these moments, as thousands celebrate together their very personal journeys. The beauty of the Camino lies in its simplicity. In its living, breathing existence as a thin place. The message each person takes from the Camino, just as the message each of you will take from this presentation, is unique. I was asked, what are the take-homes from my travels? 1. No matter our background or upbringing, kindness and generosity can bridge just about any gap between one another. Language is never really a barrier on the Camino. Another language emerged, and the collective experience created unity. 2. People come and go on the Camino, but you always have you. The only drama resides within your mind. There are many hours available to observe the mind and the stories we may tell ourselves that aren't really the truth of who we are. Is it the fact that the Camino is a thin place that the story falls away? 3. Pilgrims often exchange one simple word with one another, ultreia, which roughly translates to onward, keep going, reach higher, walk on. This word comes to mind often now when I feel challenged by life. 4. Pilgrims frequently said to me, the Camino begins when you return home. Now, 4 months later, I'm beginning to really understand what they meant. In the context of my real life, simplicity, listening, observing, the beauty in everyday interactions are the things that matter the most to me. Joseph Campbell said, you must be willing to get rid of the life you had planned so as to have the life that is waiting for you. For me, this quote embodies the essence of pilgrimage. When you walk the Camino, you find that you don't need anything that you thought you did. And you learn that the more you let go, the more you can receive and in turn share. When you step into the unknown and turn off autopilot, the essence of your being emerges. Through these types of journeys, we can discover our gifts and learn to